I found an alien woman living in my dead brother's cabin. She said he died protecting her. Michael Hale gripped the steering wheel tightly as the truck climbed the winding road. The higher he drove into the mountains, the quieter the world became. Pines stretched high on both sides, blocking out the sun, and the only sound was the steady growl of the engine. He had made this drive once before, years ago, when his brother Thomas first bought the cabin. Back then, it had been an adventure, a place for the two of them to drink, laugh, and pretend that the world did not exist. Now it felt like driving into a grave. His brother was gone. The funeral had been small and quick, just a handful of faces Michael hardly knew. He had stood there stiff and silent, watching the dirt cover the coffin, while guilt gnawed at him like acid. He and Thomas had not spoken in years. Their last conversation had ended in anger, words that had cut deep, and neither of them had reached out to mend the wound. Now it was too late. The truck rolled to a stop in the clearing. The cabin stood ahead, crouched beneath the tall trees, its roof heavy with pine needles, the porch sagging with age. Michael turned off the engine and sat in silence, staring at the wooden structure. The air here smelled of sap and earth, the kind of fresh air Thomas used to brag about. When Michael stepped out, gravel crunched under his boots. He carried a heavy box of keys, documents, and leftover belongings he had taken from the funeral home. His plan was simple. He would clear the cabin, sell what he could, and leave this mountain behind forever. But as he walked up the porch steps, something felt wrong. The key turned smoothly in the lock. The door opened without a groan, as if it had been used recently. Michael froze on the threshold. He expected the smell of dust, the stillness of a place abandoned. Instead, the air was warm. The faint scent of smoke lingered, as though the wood stove had been used not long ago. He stepped inside cautiously. The living room looked familiar, but not untouched. A blanket was folded unevenly over the couch. A mug rested on the table with the faint ring of dried liquid at the bottom. He set the box down slowly, eyes scanning the corners. In the kitchen, he found a loaf of bread that was not stale. On the counter lay a knife smeared with crumbs, as if someone had cut from it earlier that day. His chest tightened. The cabin should have been empty since Thomas's death, yet someone had been here. He stepped back into the main room and noticed something stranger. Along the wooden beams near the ceiling, carved deep into the grain, were circular patterns. Spirals within spirals, shapes that did not belong to any tradition he knew. They seemed to catch the light from the window, twisting shadows across the walls. Michael's throat felt dry. He walked to the door, stepped out onto the porch, and knelt by the dirt near the steps. There, faint but undeniable, were footprints. They were too small to be his brother's, and the shape of them seemed wrong. The heel was narrow, the toes long, almost graceful. A chill crept up his spine. He stood in the doorway listening. The forest stretched quiet around him, but silence had a weight here, as if it was holding its breath. He closed the door and leaned his back against it, heart hammering. He told himself he was imagining things. Maybe someone had stumbled across the cabin and used it for shelter. Hunters, hikers, someone lost in the woods. But the carvings on the beams whispered another possibility. Something Thomas had been involved in, something Michael had never known. That night, he sat at the table with a lantern casting a weak glow across the room. The journal box lay unopened beside him, but he could not focus on it. Every creak of the cabin made him glance over his shoulder. His hand rested close to the pistol he had brought from the truck. Then, just as the flame flickered low, a shadow crossed the doorway. His breath caught. He turned sharply, hand reaching for the pistol. But before his fingers touched the grip, something moved fast, silent, and unstoppable. In an instant, he was slammed against the wall, his breath crushed from his chest. A hand pressed against his shoulder, strong as iron, holding him pinned. He stared into a face inches from his own. Eyes glowed copper in the dim light, sharp and unblinking. Skin shimmered faintly as though it held metal beneath the surface. The figure tilted her head, studying him with predatory focus. Her voice, low and steady, cut through the silence. You are not Thomas. Michael's heart pounded. He could barely force words out. The grip loosened slightly, though she did not step back. He could see now that she was taller than him, her movements graceful but tense, as if every muscle was ready to strike again. The glow of her skin caught the lantern light, turning her outline into something both human and inhuman. For the first time since his brother's death, Michael felt fear that was not born of grief. It was sharp, immediate, alive. The stranger's eyes narrowed. She released him and stepped back slowly. Her copper gaze did not soften. You should not be here. Michael stayed frozen against the wall, his lungs fighting to catch air. The woman moved with a quiet, controlled strength, her eyes never leaving his face. The lantern's glow caught the faint shimmer of her skin again, a metallic sheen that looked both alien and beautiful. His voice came out rough. Who are you? What are you doing here? The woman did not answer at once. Her head tilted slightly, her gaze sharp as though she was measuring him. The silence dragged until she finally spoke. You are not Thomas. You should leave this place before it is too late. Her words hit him like ice. His brother's name on her tongue twisted something deep inside him. He forced himself to step forward, though his legs wanted to back away. This was my brother's cabin, Michael said, his tone harsh. Thomas is dead. I buried him myself. For the first time, something flickered in her copper eyes. A faint crease touched her brow, and her breath shifted, almost like a sigh. She stepped back another pace, giving him space, but her body stayed tense. Michael tightened his grip on the pistol, but he did not raise it. He had the sudden, unnerving sense that it would not matter if he did. She could cross the room before his finger touched the trigger. I do not want to hurt you, she said finally. Her voice was calm, but there was a weight in it, a warning beneath the words. Michael swallowed hard. Then explain. Who are you? Why are you in my brother's home? The woman's gaze lingered on him, as though she was deciding whether he was worth answering. At last, she lowered her hand, the one that had pinned him with impossible strength. My name is Kayla, she said. Thomas found me. He gave me shelter. Without him, I would not be alive. Michael stared at her. The words did not make sense. He shook his head slowly, anger flaring. You expect me to believe that? That my brother took in someone like you? His eyes swept over her metallic skin, her unnatural eyes, the strange symbols carved into the beams. What are you? Kayla's jaw tightened. You would not understand. Then make me understand, he snapped. Because right now all I see is a stranger living in my brother's cabin, speaking his name like you knew him. And I know Thomas. He would never. His voice faltered. He realized he did not know. He had not known his brother for years. Kayla's expression shifted. It was subtle, but the sharpness in her face eased just enough to show something else beneath it. Sadness, maybe. Regret. Thomas found me in the forest, she said softly. I was injured. My ship was gone. The ones who hunted me were close. He brought me here. He gave me food, warmth, and protection. He risked everything, even when he did not have to. Michael's pulse thundered in his ears. A ship. Hunters. It sounded insane. It sounded like a lie, a story crafted to keep him from calling the police. Yet the conviction in her tone unsettled him. She spoke with the weight of truth. He lowered the pistol slightly, though his hand still trembled. If what you say is true, then why did my brother die? Her copper eyes softened in a way that unsettled him even more. Because he protected me. He gave his life so that I could remain hidden. The ones who hunted me wanted to finish what the crash did not. He fought them. He saved me. And he did not survive. The words struck like a blade. Michael's throat closed. He had imagined Thomas's death in so many ways, but this was not one of them. To think his brother had died alone, fighting to save someone else, someone not even human, filled Michael with a storm of emotions he could not untangle. Anger, disbelief, sorrow, and a deep, gnawing guilt that hollowed him from within. He looked away, staring at the floorboards. The memory of his last words to Thomas echoed in his mind, sharp and unforgiving. Words of anger, not of love. And now there would never be a chance to change them. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the faint pop of cooling embers in the stove. Michael finally spoke, his voice low. "I do not believe you." Kayla's gaze did not waver. "Then leave. Go back down the mountain. Forget you ever found this place." Michael lifted his eyes to hers again. He wanted to leave. He wanted to slam the door and drive away, to let the mountain swallow this nightmare. But the thought of abandoning the cabin, abandoning the last piece of his brother's life, burned in his chest. "No," he said firmly. "This was my brother's home. If you are telling the truth, then I need proof. And if you are lying, then I will find out." For the first time, Kayla's expression shifted into something unreadable. She studied him in silence, and for a moment Michael thought she might strike again. But then she turned away, moving with a quiet grace toward the back of the cabin. "You will find your proof," she said, her voice almost distant. "But you may not like what you see." Michael did not sleep that night. He sat in the old armchair by the stove, the pistol resting on the table within reach, his eyes fixed on the faint orange glow in the ashes. Kayla had disappeared into the shadows of the cabin, silent as a ghost. He could hear her moving faintly in the other room, but she made no effort to come near him again. The hours crawled by. Every creak of the wooden beams, every sigh of the wind outside set his nerves on edge. His brother's cabin no longer felt like a place of memory. It felt like something alive, heavy with secrets he did not understand. When dawn finally touched the tops of the pines, Michael stood and rubbed the ache from his stiff neck. He needed answers, proof as he had demanded, something that explained who this strange woman was and what role his brother had truly played in all of it. He searched the cabin as quietly as he could. Drawers, cupboards, shelves, all filled with the things he expected. Tools, books, jars of old food. But there was no sign of Thomas beyond the ordinary. No photographs, no letters, nothing that could tell him what had happened here. Then, as he knelt by the edge of the bed, his hand brushed against a floorboard that shifted under his weight. He froze. Leaning down, he pressed against it, and the wood gave slightly looser than the rest. With effort, he pried it up. Beneath the board lay a small leather-bound book. The edges were worn, the cover darkened with age and handling. His chest tightened as he lifted it out. His brother's handwriting was carved across the first page in neat strokes. Thomas Hale. Michael sank onto the bed and began to read. The first entries were ordinary enough. Notes about repairs to the cabin, the weather, the kind of things his brother used to write when they were younger. But then the words shifted. The sentences grew longer, heavier, describing something Michael could not have imagined. "I found her in the forest," one entry began. "She was barely alive, her blood like liquid metal, her skin burning hot as fire. I thought she was dying, but when her eyes opened, they glowed like molten copper. I could not leave her there. I brought her here." Michael's hands shook as he turned the pages. His brother described her wounds, her strange physiology, the way her presence filled the cabin with an unearthly energy. He wrote about the hunters who stalked the woods, faceless men who carried weapons he did not understand. He wrote about how she spoke little at first, but slowly began to trust him. Another page stopped Michael cold. "She told me her name is Kayla. She is not from this world. She does not say where she comes from, only that she was hunted because of what she carries. She speaks of stars and storms that last for centuries, of oceans deeper than our planet could hold. I know it sounds insane, but I believe her. I have seen the fear in her eyes. I have seen the scars they left behind." Michael closed the book, pressing his palm against the cover. His chest felt hollow, his throat tight. His brother had not just sheltered this woman. He had cared for her. He had trusted her. And in the end, he had died protecting her. The sound of footsteps drew Michael's head up sharply. Kayla stood in the doorway, her copper eyes fixed on the journal in his hands. Her expression was unreadable, but there was no anger in her gaze. "You found it," she said quietly. Michael's voice cracked. Why did he do this? Why risk everything for you? Kayla stepped into the room slowly, her movements calm but deliberate. Because he was kind. Because he saw someone broken and chose to heal instead of harm. He gave me a chance when no one else would. Michael shook his head, his grip tightening on the book. Thomas and I, we fought. We stopped speaking years ago. I thought he was a fool, wasting his life up here. I thought he was hiding from the world. And now I learn he was doing this. Protecting you. Dying for you. His voice broke, raw with guilt. I should have been here. I should have been with him. Kayla's eyes softened, but she did not move closer. You cannot change the past, Michael Hale. But you can choose what you do now. Michael lowered the journal slowly, staring at the worn leather cover. His brother's words echoed through his mind. Descriptions of a woman who was not a threat, but a companion, a friend, perhaps more than that. When he finally lifted his eyes to Kayla, the anger in them had dimmed. It had been replaced with something heavier, but steadier. You said the hunters are still searching for you, he said. If that is true, then they will come back here. Kayla nodded once. They will. And soon. Michael set the journal aside and stood, his decision already made. Then I will not let them take what my brother died protecting. If he trusted you, then I will finish what he started. For the first time since their meeting, Kayla's sharp expression softened. A faint, almost human smile touched her lips. Then you are not like other men. Michael did not answer. He only glanced out the window, where the pines stood tall and silent, hiding secrets he was only beginning to uncover. For the first time in years, he felt a fire burning in his chest that was not just grief. It was purpose. The following days passed slowly, though the tension never left the cabin. Michael stayed watchful, his senses sharpened by the weight of danger that hung in the air. Kayla moved with quiet purpose, never wasting a moment, her hands often working with pieces of broken metal and fragments of strange devices that Michael could not recognize. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky outside the windows turned the color of copper, Michael sat across from her at the wooden table. His brother's journal lay nearby, its pages already worn from his constant reading. He had studied every word, every line Thomas had written about Kayla. The more he read, the harder it became to doubt her. What are you building? Michael asked at last, breaking the long silence between them. Kayla did not look up from the curved shard of metal she held. Sparks shimmered faintly at her fingertips as if she was welding without flame. A beacon, she said. If I can finish it, I can call my people. They will come for me before the hunters return. Michael leaned back in his chair, rubbing his jaw. And if you cannot finish it? Her hands slowed for a moment. She set the piece down and lifted her eyes to him. Then I will die here as Thomas did. And the hunters will move on, searching for others like me. The words cut deeper than she seemed to intend. Michael stared at the journal again, the guilt twisting inside him like a knife. Thomas died protecting you, he said softly. And I was not here. I wasted years angry at him. And now I am left with nothing but regrets. Kayla's gaze lingered on him. For once her sharp expression eased, replaced with something gentler. He spoke of you often, she said. He wished you would come. He wished you would forgive him. Michael's throat tightened. He looked away quickly, staring into the fire. He should have told me. He should have tried harder. Kayla was silent for a long moment before speaking again. Perhaps he thought you would not listen. Perhaps he hoped you would come in your own time. Cannot know. But I do know this. He died without hatred in his heart. The words settled like a weight on Michael's shoulders, but for the first time, the burden felt lighter. Later that night, they sat by the fire together. The flames danced across the walls, casting the strange carvings in flickering shadows. Kayla sat close to the warmth, her copper eyes glowing softly in the firelight. Michael studied her from the corner of his vision. The sharp lines of her face, the metallic sheen of her skin that shimmered like polished stone. What is it like where you come from? He asked quietly. Kayla turned her head, considering him for a moment. Then she spoke, her voice low and distant. Storms that last for 1,000 years. Oceans so deep they swallow mountains. Cities that rise and fall on waves of light. The sky burns with colors you cannot imagine. And the stars are so close you feel as if you could touch them. Michael listened, silent. Her words painted pictures in his mind that stretched far beyond the cabin walls, beyond the mountains, beyond Earth itself. A part of him longed to see it, even though he knew he never would. And yet, Kayla continued, her voice softening. Your brother's fire, this cabin, the sound of wind through the trees. These things felt more like home than all the wonders of the stars. Michael swallowed hard, staring into the flames. He was always like that. Simple things made him happy. I never understood it. I wanted more. I wanted the world, and he wanted this. He gestured around the cabin. Kayla's eyes held his for a long moment. Perhaps neither of you was wrong. You only walked different paths. The silence that followed was not heavy. It was calm, almost comforting. Michael leaned back, his shoulders easing for the first time since he had arrived. In the days that followed, he began to help her. He brought tools from the shed, supplies from town, anything she needed for her work. Together they scavenged through the forest, gathering fragments of metal left from her ship's wreck. Michael carried the heavier loads, while Kayla guided him with sure steps, her senses sharper than his. One afternoon, while climbing through the rocks near the crash site, Michael slipped. His boot caught on a jagged stone, and his leg scraped hard against the rock. Blood streaked down his shin, stinging in the cold air. Kayla was at his side in an instant. She knelt, her touch firm but careful as she pressed her hand against the wound. A faint warmth spread through his skin, and when she pulled her hand back, the bleeding had slowed, the pain fading as though soothed by something beyond medicine. Michael stared at her, speechless. She only gave a faint smile. A small gift, she said. Nothing more. That night, as he wrapped the leg properly by the fire, she watched him with quiet amusement. You are stubborn, she said. He looked up, half smiling despite himself. It runs in the family. A rare sound slipped from her lips then. A laugh. Soft, almost unfamiliar, but genuine. Startled him more than any show of strength. In that moment, he saw not just the alien fugitive his brother had sheltered, but a being who carried warmth and life despite all that hunted her. Michael felt the shift inside him, subtle but undeniable. His anger had faded. His suspicion had dimmed. What remained was something harder to define. A fragile trust, a slow-burning connection, and the first spark of hope he had felt since his brother's death. Outside, the forest stretched in silence, but Michael could feel it. The storm was coming. The hunters would not be far behind. And when they arrived, he knew he would not run. The storm arrived sooner than Michael expected. It began with the silence of the forest. The usual calls of birds, the rustle of branches in the wind, even the distant cry of wolves. All of it faded. It was as if the world held its breath. Michael noticed it first while splitting wood outside the cabin. He paused, the axe frozen in his hands, and looked around. The trees stood still, their shadows stretching unnaturally long in the gray light. Kayla stepped outside, her eyes sharp. They are here, she said softly. Michael's chest tightened. He looked at her, but she was already scanning the tree line, every muscle in her body tense. How do you know? He asked. She pointed to the sky. The air smells different. The light bends. They use cloaking fields, but the world itself resists them. Nature knows when something unnatural moves through it. Michael followed her gaze, but he saw nothing. Still, a chill ran down his spine. He trusted her senses more than his own. That night, as the fire crackled inside the cabin, Michael could not rest. He sat with his rifle across his lap, staring at the door. Kayla worked on the beacon, her fingers glowing faintly as she adjusted strange wires and shards of alien crystal. Sparks hissed in the dim light, painting her face in flickering silver. They will find us, Michael said at last. No matter how careful we are. Kayla did not look up. Yes, They always find us. Her calm acceptance unsettled him. And what then? Then you must decide, she said quietly. Do you hide, or do you stand? Michael's grip tightened on the rifle. His mind flashed back to his brother's journal, to the words Thomas had written about sacrifice and trust. He heard his brother's voice in his memory, speaking through the ink on those pages. If she falls, then all I fought for is lost. The choice felt less like his own and more like an inheritance. The following morning, tracks appeared in the snow near the ridge, deep, heavy prints that were not human. Michael and Kayla stood over them, the cold air burning in their lungs. The prints led down the slope, closer to the cabin. They are circling, Kayla said. Her voice carried no fear, only certainty. Testing the ground. Watching us. Michael studied the tracks, his stomach tight. How many? She narrowed her eyes. 3 hunters. Maybe 4. Enough to kill us both if we are careless. That night the cabin became a fortress. Michael boarded the windows with thick planks. He set traps in the trees, wires and sharpened stakes hidden beneath the snow. He stacked wood higher on the fire so its smoke would rise thick and dark, a warning that he was not afraid to stand. Kayla helped where she could, though her strength was in the beacon. Each time Michael looked at her bent over that device, he wondered if it would work, or if all their effort was nothing more than a stall before the inevitable. On the 3rd night, the hunters came. Michael woke to the sound of snow crunching under heavy feet. He held his breath, the rifle already in his hands. Outside, shadows moved against the trees, faint outlines that shimmered as if the night itself struggled to contain them. Kayla rose silently from her place near the fire. Her eyes glowed faintly, copper and unblinking. She touched his arm. "Do not fire unless you must," she whispered. "They will test us first." As if her words summoned it, a low hum filled the cabin. The walls trembled, the fire wavered, and then a voice spoke from the darkness outside. It was deep, distorted, not quite human. "Surrender the fugitive. You will be spared." Michael's chest tightened, his finger brushing the trigger. He looked at Kayla. She stood tall, her expression unyielding. The voice came again, harsher. "This is not your fight, human. Step aside." Michael's heart pounded. He thought of his brother, of the journal, of Kayla's quiet laugh by the fire. His voice was steady when he spoke. "You killed my brother. This is my fight." Silence followed. Then the shadows shifted, and the trees exploded with movement. The hunters had come. The first blast struck the cabin like a thunderclap. The walls shook, and with splinters rained down as a bolt of plasma ripped through the doorframe. Michael hit the floor, clutching his rifle. Smoke filled the room, glowing faintly from the burning edges of shattered wood. Kayla moved faster than he had ever seen. She grabbed his arm and pulled him behind the stone hearth just as another blast tore through the window. The firelight flared, then dimmed under the haze of smoke. "They will try to drive us out," she said, her voice low and steady. "Do not give them the chance." Michael nodded, his heart hammering against his ribs. He had hunted deer, fought storms, survived blizzards, but nothing compared to this. These were not animals or accidents of nature. These were killers. A shadow passed across the window, shimmering like heat rising from a flame. Michael aimed and fired. The glass shattered, and he heard a cry, deep and inhuman, echo into the night. The forest erupted. Plasma fire streaked between the trees, glowing lines that sizzled through the snow. Michael returned fire, forcing his breath to remain steady. Each shot cracked against the night, the recoil biting into his shoulder. Kayla moved like a phantom, her body glowing faintly with copper light. She leapt through the shattered doorway, energy crackling from her hands. She struck one of the hunters, and his cloaking field collapsed. For the first time Michael saw it clearly, tall, armored, its face hidden beneath a mask of steel. It roared as Kayla's strike hurled it against a tree, the snow exploding in a white burst. Another hunter charged from the side. Michael shouted her name and fired, the bullet striking its shoulder. The alien stumbled, plasma weapon jerking upward, its beam scorching the night sky instead of Kayla's chest. The fight became chaos. The forest burned with light, trees splintered, and snow turned black with ash. Michael moved from cover to cover, his rifle hot in his hands. He felt fear clawing at him, but he also felt something else, an iron resolve. One of the hunters broke through the cabin wall, splintering wood as if it were paper. Michael spun, too slow to raise his rifle. The alien loomed over him, weapon aimed. Kayla was there in an instant. She collided with the hunter, both of them crashing into the broken wall. The alien's weapon fired, burning a scar into the floor, but Kayla's strength forced it aside. She struck again and again, until the hunter's body went still in the snow. Michael scrambled to his feet, his lungs burning. "Kayla!" he shouted. She turned toward him, her shoulder bleeding, but her eyes fierce. "Stay alive, Michael!" Another plasma bolt cut between them, scorching the earth. Michael dropped to one knee, took aim, and fired. His shot struck the attacker clean through the visor. The hunter fell without a sound. The last of them roared in fury, a sound that rattled through the trees. Came charging from the ridge, plasma weapon glowing bright. Kayla stood her ground, her body trembling with exhaustion. Michael lifted his rifle, but it clicked empty. No more bullets. The hunter raised its weapon. For a moment, Michael thought this was the end. Then Kayla thrust her hand forward, and light exploded from her palm. A wave of copper fire struck the alien full force, tearing away its armor and hurling it into the snow. The forest went quiet. Michael dropped his rifle, his breath ragged. He looked around at the smoldering wreckage, the broken cabin, the scorched trees. And then he looked at Kayla, standing tall despite the wound bleeding down her arm. They were alive. But the night was not over. The silence after the battle felt almost unnatural. Smoke drifted through the broken trees, glowing faintly under the pale light of dawn. The snow, once pure, was blackened with scorch marks and scattered with the wreckage of alien weapons. Michael stood in the doorway of the cabin, his rifle hanging uselessly at his side. His hands trembled, not just from exhaustion, but from the weight of what they had survived. The forest was quiet now, but it was not peace. It was the kind of silence that comes after violence, heavy and fragile. Kayla leaned against the wall, her copper skin dimmer than before, blood staining the fabric she had wrapped around her shoulder. Her breathing was steady but slow, her body clearly struggling. Michael moved to her side. "Sit down before you fall down," he said, his voice rough. She gave him a faint smile, small but real. "I am stronger than I look." He guided her to a chair near the hearth anyway. The fire inside was nearly gone, but its glow still touched her face. Michael crouched in front of her and checked the wound. The cut was deep, glowing faintly at the edges where the alien weapon had seared her flesh. "I will live," she whispered. "I have survived worse." "Not while I am around," Michael muttered. He tore what was left of a blanket and began to wrap her shoulder, hands shaking with a mixture of anger and care. For a long moment, they sat in silence, listening to the crackle of the fire and the distant groan of the wounded forest. Finally, Kayla spoke. "The beacon must be finished. They will not stop sending hunters. This place is no longer safe." Michael lifted his eyes to hers. "Then let us finish it. Together." They worked through the day, gathering the scattered pieces of alien metal from the cabin floor, salvaging what had not been destroyed in the fight. The beacon itself was small, no larger than a lantern, but its core had been damaged. Kayla guided Michael's hands, showing him how to connect circuits that were not human in design, how to place crystal-like shards into sockets that hummed when they touched. By nightfall, the device pulsed with a soft copper glow. It sent a steady rhythm into the air, a silent song rising above the mountains. Kayla placed her hand over it, eyes closing for a brief moment. "It is done," she said softly. "My people will hear it. They will come." Michael felt both relief and unease. If her people came, what would happen? Would they take her away? Would they even allow her to stay on Earth? That night, as they sat near the half-broken cabin wall, Michael spoke quietly. "I read every page of Thomas's journal. He believed in you. He gave his life for you. I do not know why, but I cannot let that mean nothing. Kayla turned toward him, her copper eyes reflecting the firelight. Your brother saved me not only because of what I am, but because of who I was to him. I gave him purpose when he had none. I did not ask him to stay, but he chose to. That is what killed him, and that is what saved me. Michael swallowed hard. His throat ached, his chest heavy with guilt and grief. I should have been here. I left him alone. Kayla shook her head. You carry your own scars. He forgave you long before he died. I saw it in the way he spoke of you. His anger never outweighed his love. For the first time in years, Michael let himself breathe. Truly breathe. The grief did not vanish, but it no longer crushed him. The next morning, the sound came. A low hum, deeper than thunder, rolling through the forest. Michael stepped outside, his eyes wide as a sleek ship descended into the clearing. Its surface gleamed like liquid silver, its engines whispering with power. Snow lifted in swirls as the landing gear touched the earth. Michael turned to Kayla, his heart sinking. This is it. You are going back. She looked at the ship, then back at him. Her eyes softened, her expression unreadable. I could leave, she said quietly. I could return to my people and disappear among the stars. But Thomas told me something before he died. He told me not to survive, but to live. Survival is hiding, running, fighting. Living is choosing where your heart belongs. She stepped closer, her hand brushing against his. Here, with you, I can live. The ship waited in silence, its ramp lowered, but Kayla did not move toward it. Instead, she stayed by Michael's side, her choice clear without another word. The ship lingered in the clearing for a long moment, its polished hull gleaming in the morning light. Then, without a sound of protest, it rose back into the sky. The hum faded until the forest reclaimed its silence once more. Michael stood on the porch of the battered cabin, staring at the sky where the ship had vanished. His breath rose in the cold air, mixing with the smoke that still clung to the broken trees. Beside him, Kayla stood tall, her copper skin touched by the soft glow of dawn. The cabin was scarred from the fight. Its door was shattered, its walls scorched, and its windows broken. Yet, for the first time since he had come here, Michael did not see a ruin. He saw something else. A beginning. The sunrise stretched across the valley, painting the snow in gold and crimson. The light touched Kayla's face, and for a moment she seemed otherworldly, like the very mountains had shaped her. She turned to him, her expression gentle, her eyes holding both strength and something softer, something unspoken. They stood close, their shoulders brushing, their hands almost touching but not quite. Words did not need to fill the air. The silence between them was not empty. It was full, alive, carrying the weight of everything they had endured. Michael thought of Thomas. He thought of the brother he had lost, of the years wasted in silence, of the journal filled with the last pieces of who Thomas had become. For the first time, the grief did not feel like a chain, felt like a bridge. His brother was gone, but his sacrifice had led to this moment, this strange, fragile bond between a broken man and a woman who was not of this world. Kayla looked out at the valley, then back at Michael. Your brother gave me my life, she whispered. But you gave me something greater, a reason to live it. Michael's chest tightened, and yet he felt lighter than he had in years. He nodded slowly, his voice steady when he finally spoke. Then let us live. Here. Together. The fire inside the cabin flickered back to life as the sun climbed higher. The woods, once haunted by silence, now seemed alive with possibility. Michael and Kayla remained on the porch, watching the golden light spread across the world. The cabin was no longer a place of grief. It had become a place of hope. And for the first time in a long time, Michael Hale believed in tomorrow.